Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
The harvest numbers have all shrunk. And
there's ice as far as the eye can see, but we have no idea how thick that ice is.
We were talking about pheasant hunting, but he says it's never going to be like it was back in the heyday of CRP.
We can't just stick our head in the ground and say, well, it was great 15 years ago. I guess we just have our memories.
Broadcasting on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, wherever you get your podcasts, or watch on YouTube.
Fish on right now.
Well, we're here at the 2024 Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic.
Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
And our guest now is Jeremy Smith.
I fish, I hunt, and always will.
It's just to look out for your everyday hunter, angler, and trapper that's out there.
A Fish Hunt Forever production. This is Sporting Journal Radio. Well, welcome to the show. The ice fishing season is here. The St. Paul Ice Show is this weekend. We're going to talk ice fishing, and we'll talk about some late season pheasant hunting and some other shenanigans that have taken place. We're also going to talk about a summit that's coming up in North Dakota involving habitat and land access. Our old radio pal, Doug Leier from the North Dakota Game and Fish Department, is going to talk about why this is an important summit in North Dakota and why you may want to attend in person or at least pay attention to what's going on over there. We'll also get a Lake of the Woods update with Joe Henry. That's Dan Amundson over there. What's up, Dan?
Hey, here I am. There we go.
There you go.
Remember how to do this.
Who are the sponsors this week on the show?
This week we have Inver Grove Toyota. When looking for your new pickup, go to Inver Grove Toyota. They're the official truck sponsor of Fish Hunt Forever. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital. Plan a trip for this winter season at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. OnX Hunt. See private land boundaries, recent imagery, offline maps, and Minnesota-specific hunt layers. We also talk about a way you can use it ice fishing. Download the OnX Hunt app today. Tasman Lake Lodge. Catch world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tasman Lake. Learn more at tasmanlake.com. Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Catch it all this winter at Devil's Lake. Prairie Sportsman. The new season is being filmed right now, but you can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel or check your TV guide for rerun times. Haybell Heights Campground and Resort. Fish Devil's Lake this winter out of a snow bear. Learn more at haybellheights.com. And Guardian Eagle Resort. Come fish the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle Resort. Fly directly from the Twin Cities. Learn more at guardianeagle.com.
Time for
Headlines.
All right, right now it's brought to you by Inver Grove Toyota. Get 4.99% APR for 60 months on select gold certified pre-owned Camrys, Corollas, Highlanders, RAV4s, and more. And they have additional savings for you truck buyers, Tundras and Tacomas as well. And for you, we have an extra deal as well. We will get you some extra dollars off your purchase, but you got to go fill out the form at invergrovetoyota.com/FHF to save on your new Toyota. All right, the Minnesota DNR is asking hunters and other recreationists spending time outdoors this fall to report the locations of occupied bear dens they encounter around Brainerd and Duluth. Bear researchers with the DNR and University of Minnesota Duluth hope to fit an additional number of bears with GPS tracking collars this winter. Anyone finding a den in either area should obtain a GPS location if possible. Just throw a pin on OnX and then call the DNR Bear Research in Grand Rapids, and the phone numbers are available at the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources.
So they want us just poking our heads in bear dens?
Hey, boo-boo.
That sounds like a great idea.
See a big enough basket.
Like if I see what I think's a bear den, the last thing I'm going to do is go investigate if it's occupied.
I did that once. I was grouse hunting in northwest Wisconsin, and I was going through a patch of woods I'd never been in before, a real cool patch of woods, and I see a big hole, and I'm like, I wonder if that's a bear den. And I kind of crept up to it, and I saw two eyeballs. I got real close and saw two eyeballs staring back at me, and I just backed away slowly, said, nothing to see here. Move along, people.
If you're one of those that reports bear den, good for you. You've got stronger guts than I do.
Well, and I did report that one, actually. I was in Wisconsin, but I did report that one.
Good job.
North Dakota Game and Fish Department and North Dakota Department of Agriculture are again opening the Coyote Catalog, a statewide effort designed to connect hunters and trappers with landowners dealing with coyotes in their areas. Landowners can sign up on the Department of Agriculture website, and hunters and trappers can sign up at the Game and Fish. So if you go on there and want to shoot coyotes and landowners have coyote issues, you can just put your info in there and coyote hunters will reach out to you. Now, if you've done it in the past, they need you to re-register. They're doing it to keep things active. So they have a fresh list every year.
That's a brilliant idea, by the way.
Throughout winter, hunters and trappers may receive information on participating landowners and should contact landowners to make arrangements. And landowners experiencing coyote depredation of livestock should first contact Department of Agriculture Wildlife Services. That Coyote Catalog or Coyote Catalog will remain active through March 31st. I don't know why I call them coyotes, but when I talk about the Coyote Catalog, it just flows better if I call them coyotes. I don't know. That's weird. And finally, for the third straight year, Dan, a resident in Alaska named Esther Keem has been flying low and slow in a small plane over rural parts, this is from the AP, over south central Alaska, dropping frozen turkeys to those who simply can't run out to the grocery store. If you lived off the grid in Alaska and wanted a turkey for Thanksgiving, they just drop them out of planes for you.
And they say turkeys can't fly.
That's right. Keem recalls they were telling me that a squirrel for dinner did not split very far between 3 people. At that moment, I thought, I'm going to drop a turkey out of an airplane for him. This year, she's delivering 32 frozen turkeys to people living year-round in cabins where there are no roads. How cool is that? Could you live like that, Dan?
Yeah. I always said if I all of a sudden didn't have any family or friends here in Minnesota, I'd move to Alaska and start over.
But living off the grid, like, I mean, I think I would love it. But, I mean, you're making a commitment,
well,
living off the grid,
you ever
living off the land.
You've watched the TV shows, right? They do it.
they're literally.
But they're off the grid 15 miles from home, so they go to Walmart. So it doesn't sound that bad.
All right, I know a real remote area that I really liked. It was kind of off the grid, but man, they cooked you food. You fed walleyes off the dock and caught as many walleyes as you want. In Ontario, Guardian Eagle Resort. You can bring the family and fish for walleyes and pike on 75,000 acres of private water. Fly direct from Minneapolis and be at their concrete runway right at the lodge in less than 2 hours, or about 2 hours. You can learn more at guardianeagle.com. Dan, you had one of the more miserable mornings of your life the other day.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so... we had a decoy spread out on a private spot where the blind spot outdoors floating blind sits, and we just let the decoys sit out there. So it was really easy. We just zip out there and hunt whenever we wanted. We let it sit apparently a little later than we should have. We watched the weather and said, all right, we got to pick it up this week. And I saw the temps that were going to get into freezing, but the wind was just howling. Like, there's no way it'll freeze. I'm going to go out there. I'll hunt this morning. And this was before I went over to Wisconsin to deer hunt. So this is a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago now. Went out there. I thought the wind would just be keeping it all open. I was really excited. There's ducks around. There's a bunch of geese around. There's geese migrating like crazy, like the most birds we've seen in this area all season. So I was pumped. And I love late season duck hunting. And I got out there, and apparently my weather predictions was wrong because half the slough had froze, and unfortunately it was the half with all of our decoys. So I spent that entire morning, I didn't even load my gun. And to be fair, I should have, because I had mallards come in. I had geese flying over all day long, but spent like the next 4.5 hours breaking ice, and it was thick enough ice you can't walk on it, but too thick to like break it with your knees. So you're having to either try to step up and over and on top of it and through it, or at one point I'm just taking my hands and just breaking it in front of me every single step and walking forward to pick up all of our decoys, which is only like 3-4 dozen. So it's not a lot, but it took me 4 hours.
That's the worst. I think this is 4 years in a row now we've had to basically cut decoys out of frozen ice.
It was miserable. I thought about just leaving them till it was frozen enough to walk on, and then coming back with a chainsaw.
Yeah, that's what we've done.
But that sounded equally as terrible. So I bit the bullet, got it done.
Bit the bullet.
Yeah, it was terrible.
All right. Well, I'm glad you survived.
Barely.
Hey, we've got some more waterfowl content on our YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it yet, check out our travel vlog to Regina. We went snow goose hunting, Canada goose hunting, and even shot some rough grouse up there, and checked out all the hot spots in Regina and put together a little travel guide for you for your next trip to Saskatchewan. Whether you're going to go up there fishing or hunting, check it out at the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. And maybe you're going up there to do some fishing next summer at Tasman Lake Lodge, trophy lake trout northern pike fishing in northwest Saskatchewan. It's unbelievable up there. It's not uncommon for guests to get their personal best both for lake trout and for northern pike. Learn more at tasmanlake.com, tasmanlake.com. Dan, the power of social media is amazing.
Is it? I hate it.
Pheasant hunting, it can be bad, but used correctly, it can be used for good. I went pheasant hunting and I found a dead buck, and I put a picture of it on my Snapchat story, and I said, found your deer, and I had I don't know how many people. Oh, that's mine. That's mine. Where did you shoot it in South Dakota? Nope. Did you find it in South Dakota? Nope. It's Minnesota. Oh, okay. And I think we tracked it down to an older gentleman who shot one recently and couldn't find it. And I talked to his grandson, and he's like, it might be my grandpa's, and he's getting up there, but I just can't he just loves hunting so much he won't give it up, and he was just real disappointed. He shot a real nice deer, couldn't find it, and he was just disappointed about it. And I thought that was awesome that his grandpa's out there still giving her.
Heck yeah.
And he was using a crossbow, and this deer I found was probably about 1.5 miles from where he shot it. So I don't know where the shot placement was. I don't know how hard the deer was hit. I don't know if this is his deer, but I talked to a number of people that hunt that area who and there's a couple lost there. They knew of some lost deer, and I think we might have tracked it down. And that's all I wanted. I got the CO was going to give me a tag for the rack. But I told him, I said, I'm trying to track down the owner. He goes, well, if you find somebody that claims it, great. If you're not, call me back and I'll get you a tag for it. We'll go out and take a look and everything. And so I hope it's his. Like, I hope we found his grandpa's deer, which I think would be an amazing story. So I think that's pretty cool.
Nice job, social media.
That's right. All right, we got a real important topic we're going to discuss with Doug Leier, and that is habitat and access for preserving our hunting traditions. It's most important that we have habitat for the wildlife and access to quality habitat to continue positive hunting experiences. We're going to talk to Doug about that. And we got Joe Henry coming up. He's going to give us an update on Lake of the Woods, all on the way on Sporting Journal Radio. Sick of eating tag soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal win for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20. This is Sporting Journal Radio. Thank you for tuning in on the radio network by demand, sportingjournalradio.com, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify. Thank you for following us along, especially for our North Dakota people out there. We're going to talk North Dakota right now, and people from anywhere else that spends time in North Dakota or likes to know what's going on there. Our old radio pal, Doug Leier, joining us from the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Doug, it's good to see you.
Hey, good to see you guys as well. I'm getting, as you said, I'm old. I mean, when I first knew you, like, I had hair and you didn't, and you weren't gray. So
that's true.
There's been a little water under the bridge, but, so I listen to you guys. I do legitimately enjoy the show because it helps me better understand what the hunters are finding, not finding, what some of the issues are. I've learned a lot from some of the discussions on forward facing sonar from the experts from Minnesota DNR. But we're going to talk a little bit about access. And before I forget, one thing that really kind of lays it down for me is I was listening, one of you gentlemen, and I apologize for not writing down the name, but I was listening while I was working kind of out of the side, and I heard, well, then I stopped in North Dakota and filled my archery tag on my way to Canada to fill my archery tag. And I still have a Minnesota tag to fill.
Danny Thompson.
And I think to myself, like, how blessed, how fortunate, that's good, because it wasn't like a brag. It wasn't anything other. It was just matter of fact. And when we stop and we think about the state of hunting right now, and maybe I missed a couple of dots along the way. Maybe I missed, a pronghorn in Wyoming and an elk in Montana in that rundown. But I'm kind of on the right path, aren't I?
Oh, yeah. That was Danny Thompson. So I hunted with him in Saskatchewan this year, actually. And he is having the guy. So he works for Garmin, and he's honestly kind of responsible for why Garmin is doing so well in the ice fishing market. Like, he was instrumental in growing the ice fishing market for Garmin, and now they just dominate it. And he, in his spare time, he's a whitetail freak and just loves to hunt whitetails. So he hunts all over. He shot a real nice one in Minnesota this year, and he went to South Dakota. I remember he sent me a message on his way to South Dakota. He's like, all right, it's early, it's hot. I'm headed to South Dakota. I'm like, geez, that's awesome. And that morning he shoots a real nice, like day one, he shoots a real nice buck in South Dakota. And then we're planning the trip to Saskatchewan. He goes, yeah, I'm going to stop in North Dakota. I got a place to hunt in North Dakota. I'm going to stop on my way up to Saskatchewan. I'm like, man, that's awesome. And then he shoots a giant in North Dakota, a real nice deer. And then comes up and shoots a nice one in Saskatchewan too, and he still has his Wisconsin tag. So he loves the outdoors, and he's bringing his kids up into it. He's doing it right, and he's a solid dude, and he's having a great year for sure.
Right. And it really made me just stop because obviously I was listening, but I wasn't writing down names or anything. But I'm like, man, that is what it's about, is if you can find the opportunities, and don't get me wrong, if you can go out and, shoot a dove and a blue-winged teal and a sharp-tailed grouse and whatever kind of a grand slam that you want, that's fantastic. And the fact that we still live in the upper Midwest, and as a non-resident or a resident, if you have the means and the time and the ability that you can make, and not everything is going to be, trophy whitetails or whatever it might be, but I think about, some of those folks that go out and, hit a baseball game, hit a Cubs game on the 4th of July and a Brewers game on the 5th and whatever. It's like, man, we always want to strive to have better. We know that there are people that don't have the means, that don't have the ability to do that. But every once in a while, I myself, as a game and fish guy, I just have to stop and just smile. And that was one of those moments. I was like, yeah, how can you not be a hunter or an angler or work for Game and Fish or Sporting Journal Radio and not go, that's fantastic right there.
That just makes me think of one of my favorite days. Speaking of grand slams that I've had, and it was in North Dakota. I was hunting in western North Dakota, and I shot a real nice 5x5 if you're in North Dakota, or 10-pointer if you're in Minnesota. Shot that in western North Dakota, and then at lunch I went out and shot 3 roosters. And then in the evening, I sat and hunted ducks and shot a real nice straight green-winged teal.
Make the story longer. I'm still looking for the picture. Okay. You have too many Facebook photos.
It was unreal. So if you go to sportingjournalradio.com and you search for a good day in the Badlands.
Well, that would have been nice to know 2 minutes ago.
I'm telling you right now. There's a nice picture of it where I got the rack on a fence post, and then the pheasant. Well, I'll let Dan will show it here, but the pheasants are hanging from it with the green winger up on the top of it. And it's just an unreal day, Doug. And that was... So when I was hunting North Dakota, when I lived up there, we're talking like early to mid 2000s is when I spent a lot of time there. And I had moved to North Dakota, and, a friend of both of ours kind of got me back into water. I was how radio is. There it is right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually called Badlands Bounty.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You were wrong.
Or whatever. It's something like that. But yeah, that was unbelievable. That was such a fun day. There's the buck right there, the big butte in the background. I miss hunting North Dakota, Doug, and I remember when I got into it at that time, I had a friend of ours actually tell me, he's like, it's good. We were talking about pheasant hunting, but he says it's never going to be like it was back in the heyday of CRP, because acreage was coming out at kind of an alarming rate, and it still is, right? I mean, look, what's going on with habitat in North Dakota right now?
And that really kind of paints the picture of what we wanted to talk about. So we're going to have a Habitat and Access Summit in North Dakota. It's actually taking place on December 17th in Bismarck, because what you referenced, Bret, is essentially the good old days. I mean, you were living in North Dakota, hunting in North Dakota in the good old days when we had nearly 4 million acres of CRP, when we were harvesting, 500,000 plus roosters a year, when you didn't have to worry about getting one deer tag. You could get multiple deer tags. And we did kind of try to, unsuccessfully pass along to the hunters that you're living in the good old days. We say that about fishing right now in North Dakota, that you're living in the good old days. I mean, the expectation of 25 years from now it being this good or better is probably a little bit pie in the sky. But so we knew, for a lot of it, this is really something that's going to be tough to hold on to, and we weren't wrong. The Farm Bill adjustments and changes, the commodity prices change, the cap on CRP. There was just kind of a whirlwind of changes that took place, and the here and now, you go back from when you were here, say 15 years ago to right now, is we're closer in the lines of, 1 million plus acres of CRP. So we've lost probably 2/3 of our CRP in North Dakota. Our deer tag allocation is probably down by close to maybe 60% than what it was at the peak, from 150,000 tags down to around 65,000 tags. Our pheasant harvest is closer in that 200,000 range than it is in the 500,000. So you can see, from the statistical numbers, the acreage, the habitat, and then the the harvest numbers have all shrunk. And that's not something, quite frankly, that really anybody wants. And we're having a summit on that. So we're bringing together, it's not just game and fish and biologists and wildlife managers that are gathered around. We're bringing together legislators, we're bringing together industry, business owners, because as you know, from the time that you spent, whether it's in rural Minnesota, South Dakota, or North Dakota, those cafes, those motels, those restaurants, those gas stations, those bait shops, how much they benefit from the economic impact of hunting and fishing. So there's a lot of different entities that have skin in the game. And we're not naive enough to say that, one meeting is going to change everything. But we can't just stick our head in the ground and say, well, it was great 15 years ago. I guess we just have our memories, and we don't want to just settle for that. We want to think, are there things that we can do along with the different partners to maybe, turn this in the right direction?
Well, I want to talk to you a little bit more about how this came about, what we're hoping to accomplish with it, and then also talk about what else is going on in North Dakota with Doug Leier. And to me, access is number one. When you habitat, honestly, habitat and access to quality habitat is number one for keeping hunting going. When people talk about declining hunting licenses, or fishing seems to be doing okay, but when you see hunting licenses going down, there's a lot of reasons for it, and a lot of, we need to do this, we need to do this. We need quality access to quality habitat. Number one, if you provide good hunting opportunities, people will go do it. So this is to me, it's a very, very important thing. And we're going to talk more about this with Doug Leier from the North Dakota Game and Fish Department when we come back on Sporting Journal Radio.
It doesn't get much better than fresh perch and fresh walleye. If you're looking for an exciting winter fishing destination, come to Devils Lake, North Dakota. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort is on the ice with a fleet of snow bears, keeping you mobile and warm so you can stay on the roaming schools of fish. Haybale Heights on the east end of Devils Lake has knowledgeable guides, comfortable cabins, and their own lake access, making your trip as successful and stress-free as possible. To book your trip, go to haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Back, Sporting Journal Radio. Doug Leier from the North Dakota Game and Fish Department is our guest right now, Doug. And before the break, we were talking about the most important thing, I think, in continuing the hunting tradition, preserving the outdoors for hunters out there, is access and improving quality access to quality habitat. And that's one of the discussions that's going to be coming up at this summit pretty soon, it sounds like.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Bret, because if you look at it as like maybe a three-legged stool, and you've got to have the wildlife, you've got to have the pheasants, you've got to have the deer, the ducks, the geese, you've got to have the wildlife. And you also have to have the access to that wildlife, because the wildlife without the access isn't really going to make that much of a difference. But don't underestimate the importance of having the hunters, because when we talk about, the R3, the recruitment, the retention, the reactivation, and what a big push that is nationwide, is we need to have the hunters as well. And as a state in North Dakota, a little bit different than some of the other states around us, where we are solely funded by hunting, fishing, excise taxes, license sales. We don't have any funds that are coming in from the general fund from the state of North Dakota. So it's a little bit unique, is that we have to have the hunters. And that three-legged stool, if you're missing one of those legs, you can still kind of sit on it, but it just doesn't sit as well. And if you're missing two of those legs, we know you're sitting on the floor. So you cannot underestimate any of those, but we're focusing on that access, because we could have the strongest deer population and the pheasant population, but if you don't have access to that, it's really, I don't want to say it's a moot point, but like if you look at the state of North Dakota, where we have about 40 million acres of farms and ranches, 44 million total acres in North Dakota, and we've talked in the past about our electronic posting. And out of those 44 million acres, I want to say it's under 10 million acres have been electronically posted. So in terms of, not having access to the prime hunting ground anytime, anywhere that you want, in North Dakota, we don't have a across the board no trespass law. So when it comes to access, we're still pretty fortunate what we have in North Dakota in providing that access component, but I'm not gonna blow smoke up your kilt. It's getting more difficult every single year for that access, which is why, the summit that's taking place on December 17th is so important, because without that access, the hunters aren't coming to your town to stop at the watering hole, to stop at the gas station, to stop at the restaurant, the bed and breakfast, the lodging. There's so many things about that, where access is really so mutually beneficial across the board. So it's a great conversation that needs to be had. It's a tough conversation because we talked about it in the first segment, how much things have changed, how dramatically things have changed in the last 10 to 15 years.
Well, and and I'll be the first one to say, if you've got private land, I'm not going to tell you what, I'll go create habitat, hunt it. I'm not going to fault somebody for posting up their property. It's their land. They can do what they want with it. But that's just happening so often now, and people are getting more into land management, and, even maybe bow hunters or deer hunters, they're protecting their property so much, it's limited so much access. And then I want to ask you this question, Doug, because it was kind of controversial when it happened, the electronic posting. North Dakota, when I lived there, it was so much fun as a waterfowl hunter. You could pretty much, if the land wasn't posted and dead geese on it, you could hunt it. Sometimes you'd have to sleep in the field, or I remember sleeping in the field one time and two groups drove past us while we were sleeping and set up in the same field as us. So it got a little western there a little bit, but it was nice because you had all these acres that you could access, and the farmers didn't care, especially for ducks and geese. They didn't want you touching their pheasants or their deer, but they didn't care about ducks and geese. So how looking back now after a couple of years of electronic posting, how has the program been? Is everybody still happy with it? Has there been any issues? What would you say, looking back on it now, what would you say about e-posting?
I really think it's been a success because, again, the detractors, the hunters, as you said, that, got really, really used to having the opportunity of, you go out there, you find a field of corn feeding mallards on Friday night, and on Saturday morning you're setting up in them and you're having the shoot of a lifetime. So things have changed, but the flip side is we were really close to a situation where we would have had the trespass law, where everything would have been posted. And you're right, you can still find landowners that if you contact them about shooting Canada geese, shooting ducks, they'll smile a little bit and, they'll say, sure, have at it. You're not touching our pheasants. You're not touching our deer. So has it changed? Yeah. Is electronic posting perfect? No, perfect is just a word. It doesn't exist. But compared to what could have happened, electronic posting, I think, is working out pretty well. From a game and fish standpoint, we hear from hunters that appreciate being able to find the landowners now, because electronic posting, you can find the name. There's no, I wonder whose land this is. I wonder who,
Oh man,
it's much easier.
I was just saying that helps, because I don't know how many times we'd sit there for a couple hours into the evening trying to figure out who owned this section or who owned this field. And you're knocking on doors, you're calling phones, you're calling landlines, which some farmers still answer the landlines, but otherwise a lot of people don't answer landlines anymore. So being able to look it up online is nice. And so with this summit, then who's going to be there speaking? Is it open to the public? What's the goal? What are you hoping to accomplish with it?
Yeah, so if you do want to attend, pre-registration is required. It's on the Game and Fish Department website. It is open to the public. The Director of Game and Fish, Jeb Williams, is going to be there. Chief of Wildlife Division, Casey Anderson. So we're going to have a lot of people from Game and Fish. We're also going to be bringing in state legislators, because when you look at potential changes, whether it's waterfowl hunting numbers in terms of license numbers, a lot of things can get changed and adjusted via the legislature. And as you know from living here, we have a very accessible Game and Fish Department, a very accessible state legislature. So when hunters or business owners or guides and outfitters, when they want to make an impact, they have a real strong working relationship with their legislators. One of the things that maybe doesn't get quite the attention is that there's a growing movement to work with the business communities and even leveraging dollars. And, every state does things a little bit differently, but leveraging dollars, whether it's from Game and Fish and Pheasants Forever and NRCS, from a CVB, Devil's Lake Tourism, there's so many people that have such a vested interest in the future of hunting and fishing. But let's face it, you don't have to like it. You don't have to want it. But well, a lot of it comes down to dollars and cents. And when it comes to access for the future, it's going to come down to habitat, which is huge. It's going to come down to access, which is equally as important. And for that access, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that a lot of times it's going to come down purely financial, because as you referenced, we're never going to take issue with a landowner that says, I want to keep this land posted so my son can come home and go pheasant hunting, go archery, deer hunting. I want to keep this land posted so a youngster can come out here and shoot a deer. We're not taking issue with that at all. And when they're the ones paying the taxes on the land, their farming operation, it has to generate that income. And we expect them to take a loss for the sake of habitat? Some of them do. Some of them believe in the heritage enough that they're willing to break even or to take a little bit of a hit for the good of the cause. And we're just looking at, are there ways that we can do better? And it's a constantly changing world that we live in, and we just feel that bringing all these all these people to the table to understand some of the challenges and understand some of the issues, and through that dialogue, we know the meeting's on December 17th. Is the world going to change on December 18th? No, but we feel when the sun sets on December 17th, we're going to have a better understanding and maybe have more answers than questions that started on this fall and going into this winter. We can answer some of those questions and look to the future, Bret.
Well, I think that's great that it's being addressed. I also think the PLOTS program is a great one in North Dakota. I know a lot of other states have either followed suit or have a similar type program that allows some hunting access on private land, and even pays those landowners a little bit of money. And it's hard to stay competitive with with leases and crop rates and things like that. But anything we can do to open up some of that private access, if the landowner doesn't mind, helps out in this cause greatly. And Doug, I wanted to talk to you about some other stuff in North Dakota. We're running out of time, but I want to say, Dan, do a full shot of Doug there once again. I want to say it looks like you've got a Sporting Journal radio sticker on whatever that filing cabinet or fridge or whatever's on the back there. But what's next to it, Doug, you're North Dakota, and you got Iowa DNR on the behind you there.
I won a bet years ago. And I'm glad you got a good eye there. Good catch there for the Iowa DNR. But yeah, that's a bet that I won. I haven't won a lot of bets in my life, but probably representing Iowa DNR up there, throwing it up there.
There you go. Well, I miss hunting in North Dakota, and we need to do this more often. It's great to have you on once again, Doug. Have you gotten out and done some fishing yet?
Yeah, actually, I found my first. I wasn't going on the ice, but the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I was out in central North Dakota, and I kid you not, I'm driving by this slough, and I know it's a good slough for fishing. So the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, there's a guy out there, and I've actually got the picture, and I pull across you're shooting mallards in it, 2 weeks before that. There's a guy out there with tip-ups out there, and he's pulling a pike through the ice, and I stopped. I'm like, hey, how thick's the ice? It's a good 2 inches. Come on out. I said, no, I'll take your word for it. So ice fishing is happening. It's a great time of year for the wildlife, for the deer and the pheasants. We kind of wish the cold and the snow would hold off a little bit longer, but we don't get to pick the weather, and it underscores how important the habitat's going to be, because a winter that starts before Thanksgiving, and if it's still raging on in Easter, man, that's going to be great for snowmobiling and for ice fishing, but not so much for the future of pheasants and deer. But that's the reality of where we live.
That's right. All right. Well, I've heard some reports of Devil's Lake having some good ice, and if you're looking for a world-class fishing destination, check out Devil's Lake, North Dakota for walleyes and perch this winter. Catch it all at Devil's Lake. Visit devilslakend.com to learn more and plan your next trip. All right. Doug Leier, North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Really appreciate the time. Good to talk to you again. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much. I always enjoy the conversation. Thanks for what you guys do. You guys are a great voice for hunting, fishing, conservation, and the future of the outdoors. So keep up the great work. Thanks a lot.
Joe Henry's next when we come back.
Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world, is calling out to you. From the Northwest Angle to the South Shore and Rainy River, this is the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleyes, sauger, perch, northern pike, and eel pout. The fishing on Lake of the Woods is like a world of its own. Experience the most amazing fishing through one of the many full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper fish house options. For more information, go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, Sporting Journal Radio continues. We're going to talk Lake of the Woods now with Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, people want to know, when can they come up there and go ice fishing?
Are they letting out half tons yet? What size wheelhouses?
How many questions like that are you hearing right now?
We hear a lot of that, but it's because people are excited, and there people that say that this time of year are just kidding around, of course. But I will say things are progressing, and things are progressing nicely. So right now up in Lake of the Woods, and you're going to always hear me defer to the people that work the ice roads and the ice trails. Those are the outfitters, the ice guides, the resorts, things like that, because every ice road or trail can be different. You can have one that's got 6 inches of ice, and you got another one that's got 2.5 inches ice. Every part of the lake can be different. So you got to work through that individual outfitter and what they know about their ice road. That's that's their world, right? So, and that also is what keeps us safe. So when you go out ice fishing, if you have the ability to go to a Lake of the Woods or another lake where there's resorts and outfitters, stay on their ice road, utilize their services because they're watching it daily, hourly. Now, if you go out on your own ice fishing, I would really encourage you to take all the precautions, some of the precautions. Obviously, you want to use a spud bar, and you got to know how many good hits it takes with your spud bar before you break through ice and how many inches that equals. You got to know what that means. Go with a partner. Don't go alone if you can help it. Go with somebody else. Have cleats on your boots. It's slippery. I mean, there's many head injuries and back injuries now as anything because people are sliding on that really slick ice with a little bit of glaze of snow on it.
Yeah, is there much snow? Do you guys have much snow up there? I don't mean to interrupt you, Joe, but
yeah, no, I'm talking about just through the whole ice belt, in general, not just like the woods, But I'm just talking about, obviously bring ice picks with you. In case you'd fall through, you can pick and get yourself out. But I share that because, man, I'll tell you, now is not the time to take shortcuts because you're excited. Just because you see somebody out on a body of water doesn't mean it's safe. So I really encourage everybody to use your noggins and take your time and be prepared. If something happens, then you should be able to get out of it. Now, with that being said, up at Lake of the Woods, we got some very, very good reports. I saw a nice report this morning from one of the guys at Wigwam Resort, Jason Grohl, and he was all the way over 4 Mile Bay, and on the trail that they're using, he the least amount of ice he found on 4 Mile Bay was 5 inches. Now, that does not mean that there's 5 inches all over 4 Mile Bay. What that means is their trail that they are marking, that's the least he found. Now, he's also getting on the lake ice today, and there's ice as far as the eye can see, but we have no idea how thick that ice is. And we also don't know if there's any open water out there because it's very difficult to get satellite images the last few days because we've had cloudy weather. We haven't seen anybody that has flown the lake in a plane yet to get any kind of idea. But nonetheless, the good thing is things are progressing. So people are marking some of the bays right now. As you can see with the photo, the Rainy River has been frozen over for a few days. So 4 Mile Bay, there's good ice, not good ice. 4 Mile Bay, there's ice and things are coming along nicely. I talked to some people on Bostic Bay. Some people are out there angling for pike. Some are spearing. A couple other resorts where they go out of, there was only 2.5 inches ice. So they're not going out yet. They're waiting until it firms up. Other parts of that bay, you can get out from shore and it's thicker ice. So again, every outfitter has different conditions. You got to work through them. I know they're checking the Zipple Bay Resort was out checking the bay, and there's nice ice on Zipple Bay right now. They're working. So things are progressing. It's not yet. If you're bound and determined to get out anywhere, I would say work through one of our resorts that does spearing in the far back bays up at Lake of the Woods. That would be your best bet, at least for Lake of the Woods right now. But things are progressing nicely. Our 2-week forecast looks good. We don't have a lot of snow in the forecast. I think we're supposed to get about 1 inch of snow today. We got a little bit of wind coming this week. Number one, that'll probably blow the snow off the lake. Number two, we hope the wind isn't strong enough that it breaks up the ice. But again, Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature is going to do. It's going to happen. We got cold temps. We've already started. Things are progressing nicely. Bret, we always talk about what are the averages? Like normally when do you guys get out? Well, what normally happens first is people will start, outfitters and resorts will start marking their ice trails for ATV traffic and snowmobile traffic with collapsible fish houses. And then once that gets established, then it starts progressing where, you can have a side-by-side and an ATV pulling out a certain length wheelhouse, and then eventually goes to a light pickup truck or light SUV, and then a little bit heavier pickup truck, and then bigger wheelhouses. And it just kind of progresses as we get closer to Christmas and such, typically. Normally, on a given year, on average, we'll get our day houses out, our hard-sided houses with our resorts, right around December 10th, give or take. When we get our ice houses out like that, our day houses, a lot of times the resorts will purposely transport you out to the fish houses. They use a light ice rig, usually a Geo Tracker or a Suzuki Samurai, a real light Jeep, and then they pull an enclosed, heated ice people hauler trailer, and they'll take you right to the door of your heated fish house and drop you off. And they do that to ensure safety. They don't have to worry about anybody going off the beaten path or anything like that. There is a light ice rig. As things progress, for those that do have their own ice roads, eventually they'll open up their own ice roads to you driving your own vehicle out when that time comes. We have some resorts that take you out to the fish houses all year long. That's just the way they do it. Every resort's a little bit differently, but so yeah. And then the sleeper houses, Bret, normally around Christmas, sometimes a little bit before, but right around Christmas.
I don't know, and maybe you mentioned this in your list of safety items to have earlier, but I was going to bring this up, and I noticed you have something at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. It's a 5-minute ice safety checklist that people can look at to be prepared to do some ice fishing this year, and you do have this on there. But anytime I go ice fishing, particularly if I'm going to be coming back in the dark or if I'm going out in the dark, usually I go out in the light and come back in the dark. Or if there's going to be, real windy, whiteout type conditions or a lot of snow, I will definitely open up my OnX and start a tracker. So I know exactly where I stepped or where I drove or however I got out there. So I can take that same path back.
It's a great idea. Yeah, it's just very, very nice. Depends on how far you're going out. But, I got to tell you, over the years, I can remember going out on Upper Red one time and with my brothers, and we lost our serpentine belt to our truck. And we have to, when you lose your serpentine belt, the temperature gets hot real quick, even though it was 20 below outside. So we would drive, we'd drive as far as we could, and we'd coast while the temperature got too high. We'd coast and turn the vehicle off and coast as far as we could. And the temperature would come down on that truck, and once it got cool enough, we'd start it up and do it all over again. I'll tell you what, we came off a different ice road that we came out on. So obviously we missed a turn somewhere, and that's a little bit spooky to me. And so what you say is very, very accurate. The other thing, Bret, is, you can't always mark a trail when it's glare ice, right? If it's snow, you can see your footprints. Yeah. But this time of year, it's hard. So I think it's also a great idea. It's not that you even have to use it. You might have an idea of where you're going, but in the event that you get confused, then you can pull your phone out and check it.
Well, last year when we were up at Lake of the Woods, I think it was the Aglow trip last year up there, and we were driving out to one of the houses. Sometimes you're crossing different roads, and different resorts will have, a road going to the left to this bank of houses and maybe one to the right. So, even if you kind of have an idea where you're going, it's real easy to get turned off if you're going in the dark or if it's snowing. And we were driving out and it was snowing pretty good, so visibility wasn't great. Well, I pulled OnX and pulled it up on CarPlay. So I've got this big nice screen on my dash in the Tundra, and I was able to just look at that and follow my track. The first time I went out there, I laid a track, and then I could just follow that right back. So I knew exactly what turns I needed and where I needed to go. So if I was coming back in the dark, it was real easy navigation. So we just want everybody to be safe out there.
I'm going out to the Igloo bar out in front of Zipple, or if I go to the Angry Walleye out in front of Cyrus. Those are both ice bars. That's when I really lay a track, just to make sure I know where I'm going.
Coming back like this. Yeah, no. Of course. No, you want to be safe out there no matter what. And Joe, real quick, before we let you go here, we should mention this weekend is a big old ice fishing show in St. Paul, and you're going to be down there.
Yeah, yep. We're going to have a booth with Lake of the Woods Tourism. This is a granddaddy of them all, the St. Paul Ice Fishing Show down at the River Center in St. Paul, adjacent to the Xcel Energy Center. And I'll tell you what, man, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and there's going to be I mean, between destinations like Lake of the Woods being down there, we have a bunch of resorts from Lake of the Woods down there. You can speak directly to ice guides and resorters. Lots of other great destinations. Different ice fishing tackle manufacturers. You're going to have the ice hoggers down there. You're going to have retailers. I know there's retailers going to be blowing out some really good deals on ice fishing stuff this year. So, and it's just a very festive time. I mean, it's a lot of great seminars by some of the best ice fishing pros in the world. And it's just a great time. I know a lot of people will come from a long distance. I mean, I've met people from New York there before and in other destinations far away. They come and make a weekend out of it. They go to the ice fishing show. Maybe they'll take in a hockey game or something else. They go for a good dinner down in the St. Paul, and it's kind of a fun time if you have nothing going on.
I've been down there during that show, and I think there was a wild game that Saturday night too, and right around that West 7th area. It was insane. Like, it was crazy. Between the people wearing their wild gear and, and clam gear or whatever, some sort of fishing, ice fishing gear. And then all the after parties that all the brands have and things like that. Like, it's kind of a wild time if you're into ice fishing.
It's funny how things change. So yes, it is a wild time, and no pun intended, right? But
wild time. Yes.
Yes, exactly. I know you're a huge hockey fan. It's funny because I'm Snapchat friends with you. I know how often you post about the
I always post highlights, yeah. For sure.
But,
thanks, ESPN.
It's kind of cool because you get a lot of people walking around the show a few hours before the game with wild stuff on. You chit-chat with them, and then, of course, you got people that are working the show that'll cut out a little bit early if they have somebody watching their booth and go to the wild game. And, as far as those parties and stuff, afterwards, I mean, I don't know if it's wisdom or old age or what it is, but
it's I think.
Now I don't know if I value my sleep or I don't like those headaches the next morning, or it's that I have to talk to thousands of people, and I might have a couple, but I've gotten I don't know how I'd say it. If I've gotten
you don't do the parties anymore,
or maybe I'm more boring. I don't know what it is.
Well, standing in those booths all day, you're just standing there talking, but that's tiring. Like, that's a long day of standing, because you're like me, you probably stand most of the time to talk to people. Half the time I stand outside my booth when I'm there talking to people, and that just gets to be tiring after a while. And the last thing, well, maybe not the last thing you want to do is go party with your buddies, but it's not as high on the priority list as it used to be, for sure, especially if you're working all day like that.
Well, so it's interesting because, so I have a real tall director's chair, so I can be at eye level, but at least I can sit part of the day then, and that helps me out, stable energy. But, when you're high energy and you want to give people everything they want, like, there's a lot of questions coming, you want to educate them, you want to give them tips about, based on what kind of fishing they want to do or where they want to go, or maybe they want to go up to the Northwest Angle for the first time. Maybe they're asking about spearing. Maybe they're asking about bringing their own rig up. What ice road would you go out of? I mean, whatever. There's a lot of things we cover, and it's nonstop. It's bang, 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 but that's why we're there, And I want to give everything I got. But to your point, by the end of the day, at least myself, I'm toast. To go have dinner and maybe a couple with some people from the industry or maybe other Lake of the Woods resorts, and then to go back and kick back and maybe watch one of the football games that's on. There's a lot of conference championship football games on this time of year, and my alma mater, St. John's, is playing in the national playoffs on Saturday, so I got a feeling I'll at least have to check my phone to see what that score is during the afternoon. But it's all part of it, man. It's a fun time of year. Ice fishing, baby. Ice fishing. Right. The year's out good. The weather forecast is looking good for our ice belt. I can only cross our fingers for everybody that we get cranking on the right note this year. We need a good ice fishing a year across the ice belt. We've had a couple of iffy years when it comes to just weather. A couple of years ago, remember how we had some thinner ice conditions and we got dumped on with heavy snow on top of that thin ice, and it kind of messed it up for some lakes all year long. And
last year was garbage for sure.
Last year was tough. Yeah. The other thing I mentioned too, Bret, is, and we've talked about it before, but I'll tell you, if you're looking for some very unique trips with famous guides in the ice fishing industry, if you're looking to go fishing with some former Minnesota North Stars, the MinFish auction, the MinFish ice fishing auction is on right now, and that's going to be on for a little while yet. Tell you what, I would check that baby out. There's some great tackle packages, some really fun trips. And it's not just about the trip. It's some unique trips because of who you'd be able to fish with. So I just thought that, man alive, there's some personalities there that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You don't always get a chance to fish with some of these folks.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Of course, we got a package on there too. And one thing I'll close on this, Joe, is when you talk about us needing a good ice season, a part of it is just for our sanity, I think, right? People look forward to ice fishing for forever, and if they don't get to ice fish as much, they go crazy. But we've seen what the economy has been like the last few years. We know in the outdoor world, some of the smaller outdoor businesses have had a couple of tough years between COVID and then, adverse conditions out there. Go support some of these small businesses. Go support some of these outdoor businesses, especially if you like them and are using their products. Go buy some extra ones. Maybe go see them if they're at the ice show. Go up there and thank them for doing what they're doing and buy some stuff from them. Because if we don't support these outdoor businesses, they're going to go away. If they're not going to make it, they're going to go away. And, we need, especially some of these smaller ones, they really help balance things out in the outdoor landscape. So go out there and support them.
If you're looking to get some product this year, some ice fishing products, now's a great year to buy them. I know that retailers are full of inventory. The manufacturers are full of inventory. There's going to be some deals this year. I'll tell you what, if you need some extra stuff, or if you're trying to get somebody, a loved one into ice fishing and they need some equipment, we'll tell you now is the time for sure.
All right, Joe, if people want to get a trip planned to Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
Now is the time, baby. Get it booked. lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.